I sit all day. I don't sit formally on the cushion in formal practice all day, but as a therapist, I'm literally sitting hour after hour. And for a large portion of my career, this didn't seem to be a problem at all. But that's changed in the past couple of years. And I've had several bouts of rather debilitating back pain that would just come from seemingly nowhere. This pain shooting up through my right hamstring, up my side, down my side. I mean, almost comical when I would be in the midst of those back pain attacks, the way I would walk or attempt to walk, like literally hobble. Out of necessity, I would do some stretching, trying to regain some looseness and some openness in the back and in the legs. And it helped rather minimally. For those of you who have experienced back pain, you may know that a good portion of what needs to happen in the midst of those moments is just riding it out. And thankfully, after some days, the pain subsides. After going through several cycles of this with apparently no particular rhyme or reason for when the attacks come, I gradually developed the acceptance that stretching needs to be a daily part of my life, of my daily routine. And so I stretch in the morning, I stretch in the evening, and at times I stretch during the day as well. And I can feel in the body, I can feel that I am tending to the needs of the body, that I am literally giving like water to a thirsty body. I guess the body is able to take that beating up to a certain point in our life and then cannot tolerate it that way at some point in the same way. I have years of practice with a martial arts background. And, I used to think that the phrase, the body takes a beating, had, a very literal connotation for me. I was literally used to the body taking beatings. And this is a whole different kind of experience for me. And I think about this practice of flexibility, of being invested in increasing the range of motion of the joints and the body in a way that I relate very, very much to this month's parami of patience of Kanti. I really see the practice and the cultivation of patience as a practice of flexibility training. Because the patience, as we understand it in this parami, is a response of acceptance in the face of what is either undesirable in life or even what is desirable. It's a response of acceptance. And I think of the famous imagery or the simile that's given in Buddhism, and it's actually found in Judaism and in many other world traditions, and famous fable of the oak tree or the cedar tree. And standing right next to it, growing right next to that tree, is grass or reeds. And the wind comes along and blows, and the oak tree or the cedar tree is unmoving, strong, unbending. And the grass moves, it bends in the direction of the wind. But at some point, there is some force, some wind that will overwhelm the tree. And then the tree is done for. It falls over. And the grass just bends in whatever direction the wind takes it. And when the wind passes, it's upright again. There's this story that's brought down about a man who was angry at the Buddha. And he insulted him. And in response, the Buddha asked him a question that seemingly was completely irrelevant to the context. He asked the man if people ever visited him. Did he ever have visitors in his home? And the man was sort of taken aback by the Buddha's reaction. And he said, yes, I have visitors. And the Buddha asked him, have you ever offered to feed these visitors, to feed your guests? And the man said, yes. And then the Buddha asked him, and what would happen if they would refuse to accept the food? Who would the food belong to at that point? And the man said, well, of course, the food would still belong to me. It would be my food. And the Buddha then simply said, in the same way, I do not accept your insults. They remain with you. This ability to be so present, so grounded, with clear seeing, as opposed to the reactivity that we all know and can relate to. This comes directly through the parami of patience. And perhaps the opposite of impatience is not patience per se, but it would be helpful to perhaps consider that the opposite of impatience is contentment. When we're not in our reactivity, deluded by the I, the mind, the me, there's a deep contentment, an acceptance of what is exactly as it is right here and right now that's available for us. The famous Buddhist teacher Munindra says, by practicing, he's talking about this quality of patience, and he says, by practicing, it can happen anytime, at any door of perception, when one is ready, but not by expecting. Continue working. Every step is taking you near the goal. Continuity is the secret of success. Anyone who wants to know the art of living, who wants to experience this Dhamma, has to understand it clearly. But as long as you are expecting, it will not happen. When I stretch in the morning, there is definitely this hope that the practice of stretching is preventing another bout of back pain. But I'm stretching because it's simply good and wholesome to stretch. The body is asking to be stretched. And in our experience of life as well, we are being asked to stretch, not just with extraordinary difficulties or challenges that arise our way, but even in the ordinary and mundane moment-to-moment experiences of life. What we encounter at work and in relationships and with our family and ultimately and always with ourselves. Opportunities for stretching are constantly with us. I saw this beautiful little essay by Ross Gay in his beautiful book, The Book of Delights. It's entitled Grown. And this is what he writes. I suspect it is simply a feature of being an adult, what I will call being grown, or a grown person, to have endured some variety of thorough emotional turmoil, to have made your way to the brink, and if you're lucky, to have stepped back from it, if not permanently, then for some time, or time to time. Then it is too a kind of grownness a kind of grownness, by which I see 3 squares of light on my wall, the shadow of a tree trembling in 2 of them, and hear the train going by and feel no panic or despair, feel no sense of condemnation or doom or horrible alignment, but simply observe the signs, light and song, for what they are, light and song. And knowing what I have felt before and might feel again, feel a sense of relief, which is cousin to, or rather water to, delight. I love that. The watering of delight. And this practice of acceptance, wise acceptance, being able to take a moment and see for myself, there's an opportunity here for me to choose to bend, not in defeat, but in clear seeing, biding my time, perhaps biting my tongue, resisting the urge to respond with words in a moment when my heart is feeling the intensity of a reactive feeling, or perhaps choosing to smile kindly at my 17-year-old when what he's offering me in the moment isn't kindness, but his teenage self-oriented, work in progress self. Yes. Or earlier this morning, sitting in session with a client who's sharing with me his narrative of stuckness and despair, seemingly committed to this narrative, came in, written down headlines of his week, proving to me, seemingly needing to prove to me how everything he's experiencing in life is futile, all his efforts, and that there is no hope. And all these things are coming to my mind, these wise things I want to point out to him and say, help him see, recognizing the intensity that's coming along with that. And then bending and stretching, allowing myself to be that stretch for him in the room. Perhaps with words and perhaps just with a kind heart and my smile, bringing presence for a person who's not right now present within himself.